viewers on Salt Television, our dear listeners on Salt FM. We have delayed for some good 20 minutes. The program was supposed to start by 3, but due to technical problems, we had to sort out so many things, and I thank the technical team, but we are now on air. Thank you so much for being patient with us. Thank you for waiting patiently. Those who are in Eastern Uganda, those who are in Northern Uganda, those in Western Uganda and Central, our neighboring countries, the people in Kenya, Tanzania, Rwanda, Burundi, Malawi, Zambia, South Africa, Southern Sub-Sahara, where we connect on Azam platforms, Zouk platforms, and DSTV. Here is our program. We are still continuing with our celebrations as Africa celebrates the independence of Israel, which is now 72 years, and also as Israel still celebrates. It's a good way of celebrating when we take like a month or two to reflect on this and that. Today, as I promised you, we have our guests who are in Israel. We have connected with them. We are going to have a healthy conversation which will include the relationship between Israel and Africa, Africa and Israel, Uganda and Israel, and also Israel and Uganda. We have online Brother Rami, and we have online Sister Lobby. They are in Israel. May I welcome anyone that is ready right now? Ladies first. You are welcome, Sister Robbie. Thank you so much for giving us this wonderful time. Ugandans and the rest of the Africans are waiting to hear from you. Please say hello.
Thank you, Pastor Bujingo, and thank you to Salt Media for this reach out. I'd first of all like to introduce myself by my Nigerian name. Brothers and my sisters. My name is Oluwatobi Love. I'm Nigerian and Israeli. And almost 10 years ago, I moved to Nigeria to Israel for the purpose of serving in the army.
Sure. Yeah, I kept my surprise. They thought that 2 white Jews are coming, and now they're wondering, another Jew is an African. Quite interesting. Did you say you served in the Israel Defense Forces?
Yes, Pastor Bujingo. I was the first female Nigerian officer to serve ever in the Israeli Defense Forces.
Wow. That is a good gesture for Africans to have joined the hands in that way. It's actually what we are looking forward to see that wonderful relationship. And then did you say you are married to a Jew?
Yes. So my mom is a Christian, and my dad is Israeli Jewish. And 4 years ago, I said my vows, and I married a Latvian-born Jew. Because Israel is so diverse, you have Jews from all over the world who come to live here. And married for 4 years now.
Wow, congratulations. Though we are not on the wedding, but we are joining right now.
Yes, thank you.
It's a good gesture as we are looking forward to building this relationship between Israel and Africa. We as the Christians are so much interested and friends of Israel's. But then we didn't have this experience of intermarriages. So when we intermarry, sharing the DNA, it makes it very easy for us to understand each other. Thank you so much for representing.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Now we go to Brother Rami. Yes, Mr. Rami.
So
I salute you, sir. You are welcome once again. I want to give you a feedback that Ugandans were like talking to another Ugandan person in Israel. The story was so good. Those elders who had the experience of what happened, you gave them the facts and they matched them with what they had, and it was perfect. You are welcome once again. Greet your fellow Ugandans because they call you Ugandan.
Yes, thank you. Open the doors again. You know, we were here together, I think, 2 weeks ago or so. Now, there is a chance, but totally different than the first time. You know, sometimes life took us, everyone personally, but much more than personal passion, to meet different people. And I met Toby in London. Somehow God wanted us to be at the same conference, MDA, it's like Red Cross, you know, helping organization. And since then, we are in contact. I've been in contact in different Christian organizations around the world. And as I plan to be in Nigeria, of course, Toby was the one who gave me the chance to meet her family in Nigeria. And then we became more close friends. And somehow, like in a Jewish family, it's look like the rabbi, the man, it's totally wrong. It's always there is woman behind. She is the boss of almost everything. So it's just now the same. Toby, she's in the front and she knows exactly the spirit of Africa, African Christians and people. And I'm walking next to Toby, and I'm so happy that I had a chance to meet her over there in London and to meet her in Israel, and now to be together in a Salt Media, together with you, Pastor Bujindo. It's an honor to be again and to see how could we make our relation between Israel and the Christian people and the African states more deeper and more on a love and warm way. That's why we're here together. But remember, Toby, she is in the front. That's the most important in the Jewish.
Thank you so much. But before I go to Madame Toby, I wanted you to share with us that experience of the kibbutz that you always tell me. Kibbutz was a humble place. Kibbutz was like a poor place. And can you kindly please give us briefly the experience of where you were born, how it was and how it is right now?
Okay, it's a very, very nice and important question to see that sometime when the beginning of the establishment of the State of Israel became real, at more or less the same time, the idea of the communism and born in the world. And the idea of living together in a commune way of life was very popular in Israel, and to establish a kibbutzim, which people live together, spread all over Israel. There is almost 300 kibbutzim, a community places around Israel. And what is mean kibbutz? Today, it's mostly a place where families in their own way of life. The children live with the parents. When I was a child, I born and grow up in a children's house, separated the parents. But now we live together in a family. When the two daughters reached the age of 18, they had a new house, which the kibbutz supplied them. All the economy are in common. Everyone who works in a kibbutz place or is working outside the kibbutz, they brought the salary to one bank account, and it doesn't matter if you work in a kitchen or in a factory, or if a manager of the factory, you get same budget, the same amount of salary. And if it's a succeed, it's a good way of life. It's a place where I live. It's a very good place. We supply our children to ourselves a good way of life. Next time when we will meet, I will reach us so people can see that. What do we share? There is a big dining room in the kibbutz where all the people and the children eat over there. There is a laundry which all the members of the kibbutz and people who are living in the kibbutz, they gave the laundry dirty clothes and they get it clean and ironing. There is a clinic. If you need a doctor, you don't pay for that. If you need a dentist, you don't pay for that. It's all services that the kibbutz give you free. So in so many different ways, what everyone needs, you get in our kibbutz. Many kibbutzim, it's totally different. But our kibbutz is very successful kibbutz. The most important for it's education. All the education system, from the first day till the last, paid by the kibbutz. First of all, what you have to pay at school, and then non-conventional after hours. The kibbutz applied people to look after the children, them an opportunity to end life. It's a very freedom way of life. The children grow up in a very good atmosphere, very safely. Many times you can see children go around either by walking or bike, and they are so free, feel free to go to buy ice cream or to meet with their parents, but they are not have to be worried about. There is no cars. All the cars is around the kibbutz and not in the kibbutz. So they're very safe being there. And that is for the beginning, a short time, what is mean community way of life. For many times what we say about the kibbutz, to have a good place to live, you need two things. First, to live in a commune, and then to get a good amount of income. Otherwise, it's impossible. It couldn't be just ideology. It's impossible. People need some freedom. People need to have some space to run their privacy. The next time when I will be with more stories about, you will understand what is mean. At the beginning, had very little freedom. The kibbutz told them exactly what they have to do 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.
So it was a concerted effort of the community to change the welfare of the Kibbutz people?
Some way I can say yes. At the beginning of the state, the kibbutz was an example of a good way of life which radiate out kibbutz to the state of Israel, to the people who live outside the kibbutz. They gave them an example how is a good way to create a state. The kibbutzim movement was on the front of every party who control the state. And they radiate. Today, the kibbutzim, it's not anymore. The state of Israel is not that strong ideology. We try to live as the country's way of living, but at the beginning, 20, 30, 40, it was a totally different. The kibbutz was on the front, and they sent all their children to be in the elite unit in the army to fight for the establish the state of Israel to the existing of Israel.
Thank you so much for the beginning of the program. Is very powerful. It is very promising. We are going to go to our sister. For those of you that are viewing Salt Television, those that are on Salt Media app abroad, on Salt Facebook and YouTube, you can follow this sister on her Facebook. Facebook is Share Love, share as in share, LOV International. Facebook is Share Love International, share as in the word share, LOV International is the Facebook. You can follow the conversation. My sister, you are welcome. Brother Rami is a very good storyteller. He can tell you and he can take you back to the days and brings you to today, and then he gives you the picture of the future. When we were talking yesterday, we talked about an idea that gave me a sleepless night. When you talked about the concept of the millennial diplomacy, and you said that you as an African married to a Jewish, and as a person that has served in the Israeli Defense Force, as a Christian and as a young lady, you're seeing a virtue of the millennials, the people who are born between 86 and they are from 86 below 35 and below. Can you please share with the whole world what the millennial diplomacy concept means?
Sure. I would love to get into in order for everyone watching to understand how it is that I arrived at the term millennial diplomacy. I would just like to provide background as to how I arrived at the millennial diplomacy. Now, you see, when I was growing up, my mother, my strong African mother, always used to tell me in any situation where I am that I should occupy my space. And growing up, I never understood, what does she mean, occupy your space? And it's just in the last few years, I have begun to understand through my life journey that occupying my space, meaning not being afraid of taking charge of what it is that I want and what it is that I see. As it says, be through a series of events, I arrived at what today I call millennial diplomacy. Now, wonderful interview, you said something along the people were expecting two white Jewish men. right? I believe so. And then you have someone like me, a young woman, educated, army officer, and then you realize, oh, that doesn't fit into what it is that I think I should be seeing. And I want to tell you, Pastor Bujingo, that is really my PowerPoint, my strong point. When I speak of millennial diplomacy, I speak of being a face of Israel, to which people may not know up until now. And the millennials, a generation that I to, is a wonderful set of people. And if you look across Africa in general, Africa is a young continent. And what I've found in my year of operation is that these are the people who are not reached across onto. And I put it as my mission and my initiative, and very briefly of it, of Share Love International. This is an initiative that I have chosen to reach out into the millennials and to basically deal with people, knowing how to build relationships. And I feel as though that has been a group of people in, I wouldn't say forgotten, but I would say not tapped into. And so when I termed the term millennial diplomacy, and I call myself a millennial diplomat, I'm not speaking as myself as someone who's, blue collar, suits, formal. I think I find myself somewhere between how the media serves as a sort of form of diplomacy and how you have the formal bodies of diplomacy. And I think that I would be able to reach across simply because I understand the mindset and I understand the language of millennials like me.
Very important to understand the language of the millennials. I swear we are finding a problem that leaders are failing to communicate to the millennials because of not knowing exactly how to communicate with them. What do you think is the problem with the youth? Like you said that when you look at Africa, is full of young generations. What do you think that compared to you have been in Africa and then you have been in so many countries, but in particular in Israel, what do you think is missing in the Africa youth to develop?
I wouldn't call it a problem. I would call it something that has not completely been developed. I think one of the issues that sees back in prosperity, as you would call it, of the youth is, you can look at it from a nation, or you can look at it from a personal level. But I think it's providing the right environment, a set of skills and information. Now, for the information part, I know that and a lot of nations across Africa are getting this very right. Today, now more than ever, more people are exposed to the internet. And so even if previous generations, were told this is how it is without having a way to check that it is, the millennials and the generations after them can check for themselves, can educate themselves, can bring themselves out of it. But I believe that it has to be more than a self-effort. This has to be an effort on the governments, an effort on the leadership, and there has to be some kind of shared responsibility. And I think this is something that Israel knows how to do very well. But then again, there hasn't been someone who's taken it upon themselves to full capacity to try and help this youth, to direct. Yes, there are wonderful initiatives. I know that the embassies do a lot of initiatives. I'm speaking of the Israeli embassies, right? Across Africa. And NGOs, private bodies, private organizations. But this needs to be something that is a shared effort.
You think that the governments in Africa have not played their role to skill the youth?
I think that there is such a fast changing, I would call it a fast pace at which things are rapidly changing. So if something that was deemed, for example, education, a lot of the jobs that a few 20, 30 years were deemed absolutely necessary are no longer as necessary. And we see that shift happening even on a much faster pace. And I feel that not necessarily government, but nations in general are not keeping up with that pace. And there needs to be more grassroots movements, because when you know what the society needs from inside, then you know how to help it. I know there are a lot of initiatives, and again, I'm saying this doesn't need to be, and I said that, it doesn't need just a government effort. This needs to be a shared effort by the whole of Africa, by the whole of the world.
Shared efforts, indeed. Do you think the religious sectors also failed to do its part, and the parents? Or you think the parents are trying and the religious, then the governments are not giving opportunities?
Well, you would have to tell me, Pastor Jingo, because I really want to educate myself on that. It's so important that we as individuals, I take self-responsibility. It's very important that I educate myself in terms of how it is I as a person, I as a foundation can help prosper the youth. I don't know where blame lays, and I'm not seeking for where blame lays. I'm seeking to find a solution to help the youth, to empower them, empower young girls and boys, to develop them, and to give them an opportunity.
All right, if you don't mind, I would like to ask you, as a young lady, do you think the youth in Africa should undergo a military training like it is in Israel, or it's not necessary? Because I think, apart from being unemployed, the youth in Africa are so violent, and I think violence can always be tamed. If somebody had served in the army, then it's a choice to stay in the army and serve the defense force, or then come back to the society with a certain sort of discipline. It's not compulsory in Africa to join the army. Do you think the army did some good work in yourself? That's why you see the way you see the things?
Well, first of all, the one with the more experience here is Rami, in terms of the army. But say, before I answer in terms of what we think, that any program or initiative that takes young people for a period of 6 to a year and gets them involved into community, into the nation, into the family, into the brethren, would only reap benefits. I don't know if you know, but in Israel, you don't have just the army for young 18, 19-year-olds. You have a civil service, I think that's what they call it here, the direction, in which you have young people also taking a year out of their lives to get involved in their community. And so any initiative like that, I think, could only prosper. You have young people and you have energy that they have and all of the dreams and all of, and you propel them and you direct them into improving their lives. And that in itself provides a form of discipline. That in itself provides a sort of border, giving you a space, shaping to yourself. So if that would be in the shape of an army service, okay. If that would be in the shape of a civil service, also fine. Voluntary, whatever you want to call it whatever name, give it whatever, borders, as long as it's something that will, in effect, affect the person and affect the country in a positive way. And I can say for myself, going to the army was one of the best decisions of my life. And the Israeli has done so much for me that I don't know any other place in the world that could have done that for me.
Sure. Yeah. I thank you so much. You've answered it very correctly. I think we need to find the terminology that can take the youth into some disciplines and also serving the community. It was a good terminology to call it a civil what?
Civil service.
Civil service.
I know you have one like that in Nigeria, which is a youth service.
Okay.
And across many nations in Africa, I think people just come up much more structured after a problem like that.
Do you mind expounding on what you discovered, what your mother meant to keep telling you that occupy your space? Occupying the space is also a new word today. Can you please elaborate that to the youth that are on this show? What is occupying the space indeed?
Well, you'd have mom on the show for that, because I want to do the best to explain it.
Yes.
But like I said, when my mom would tell me to occupy this, she meant do not be afraid. If there are things and opportunities that you feel like you want to have, you should. And if there's currently no one doing what you would like to do, go ahead. And that has definitely taken me to a lot of places, that mindset. And I think it's a good mindset for a lot of people, especially my age.
Brother Rami, are you still there? Yes, Brother Rami?
Yes, I would like to add something.
Yes.
Subject what Toby shared, and to give a thought on that.
Yes.
I'm saying there is something similar in Israel and Africa, our continent, and Israel is a very country, so we have to remember that. But there is something which was in the front of Israel. I grew up in an atmosphere where, in many cases, people said America is the best place to live.
Whoa.
And if not America, Australia. And if not Australia, but nobody said Africa is the best place to live. Well, it was a word when we grew up. And many young, for years, moved from Israel to other parts of the world. Some of us to Africa, but most of them to the States, to Australia, South Africa, and to these many young generation African from different countries who think there's a better place in the world. So there is some similarity between Uganda, Israel, to think about that, there is no different. What do we have to do that we become a patriot to our country? We feel that our country is our home, and we would like to live in our home. We would like to make our of life in our home to be better in the next. There is many things which we can put on this idea, but the idea is to create the people, especially the young generation, feel that their home is where their family live, and they love to be where they live, and the country and themselves create a better quality of life. And it's in Israel. It's not a difference. It's not easy all the time. It's become in a way, because there is a question of whether only the political situation, of course, but still for young generation to feel that where they born, where their family live, it's a good place. It's a place to create it better. In Israel, in Uganda, in Africa, in every state, to feel how we can create together a better quality of life. Because otherwise people want to move to other part of the world, and there is a big numbers, and I'm not talking about refugees who are moving from to escape from a war. So I'm talking about young generation who think that America is a better quality of life. And I think any aspect of Uganda, it's a better quality of life than in America. But how do we create? That's the issue in my eyes.
It's a great insight to know that almost the world looks the same. I had never thought that also Jews were seeing other countries as countries to be better than Israel, because for us we are aspiring to get there, though not to live there, but we think it's one of the first world where we have to reach and enjoy the bliss. Last time when we were talking with you, Mr. Rami, you told me that in every relationship, the foundation is the most difficult part of it, and it goes deeper, it goes wider. What do you think we need to put in the foundation to make the youth believe in themselves and in their countries? What do we have to do as the leaders, as the politicians, to make the youth patriot?
One of the most important in Israel, as well as, let's say, I said Uganda as an example, because now we are from, on Uganda, but it's in other countries as well, of course. There is history on a country. There is something in the country which creates the name of Uganda, the country of Uganda, the nature of Uganda, the way that the people fought life in Uganda, become a biography of the state. And we should put this story in a positive meaning. There is a reason why God put the citizen of Uganda in Uganda. It's not just a mistake. It is a God decision, and it's a God wishes that the life in Uganda will be the best country, the land could give to the people. But to give them an opportunity to do it, we have to eat that for people. And today, good luck, there is no civil war in Uganda. There is enough water, enough land. Of course, there is problem like every human life, every family life, but problem create a better result, or could be. So that is what I think. One of the most difficult things in Israel today, in my eyes, that we lost the idea, why do we live in Israel? What is the reason of living in Israel? At the beginning of the state of Israel, it's quite clear it's a Jewish meaning, which become in a modern time as a Zionist movement. And the Zionist movement, because the Jews went and said, Uganda, it's not the right place for the Eretz Israel. And at the beginning, people fought for that reason and felt that they create something which is meaningful for themselves. They woke up in the morning, when they opened their eyes, till the last moment when they went to bed and closed their eyes, they felt there is a meaning what they do. But today, this meaning is not so clear. And you are a Christian, you have a from the first day till the last days of life. You have a meaning. And to have a meaning in life, it's very important. If the meaning of life, it's only a question, how could I get a better car or better house? It's not a meaning, just changing, makes the life easy. And you brought to meaningful. And in Israel, if we create a meaning, why do we live in Israel? Less young generation move to America, either England and Australia. Should be why do we live? And you know that better than me. I'm not a pastor, I'm a simple person, but you teach people a meaningful way of life.
When you said that the place to be a better place, it is the person who makes that place a better place. I think it is the initiative that my sister is pushing to have the millennial diplomacy, where the millennials have to believe, not to jump to fly to where there is good life, but to create good life where they are. Am I right, my sister? I can't hear you. Oh.
I agree completely with what Rami has just said. There is a lot that is very similar between, Israel, the youth, and a lot of African states. And I think this is one of the wonderful things of this conversation, is that people realize that there is more common than there is that divides. And when you speak about the millennials and millennial diplomacy, sure, there are a lot of things that could be done on the theoretical side, but need a lot of practical in the end of the day. But yes, I do agree with a lot of what Rami, his approach. creating that love from within the society, from within the youth.
Because most of the youth, most of the millennials, they don't believe in so much of the elderly advice. Yet, Mr. Rami, as you heard him, he said that we need to keep the biography, the history of where these countries and the elders have come from to get where we are. Whereas most of the millennials do not believe even in talking about of the past. They are pursuing something that is not easy to understand. What is your take on that?
Well, I can understand that. I mean, this is a generation that is looking to pave its way. This is a generation that was introduced to the internet. Let's say a lot of changes came as a result of resilience to go forward. But I always think that in order to go forward, there has to be some kind of reliance on the past and on the history. And I believe that's a challenge on its own. And each nation state has to find a way to overcome that challenge. Like you have a young child who wants to run before it's able to walk. But before it can run, it has to understand that it has legs. And those legs are built from bones. And those bones have skin and mass and muscle. So even if it's very difficult to explain to a child, okay, this is what you need, at the end of the day, you start running, they understand, okay, maybe I should go back more about how to walk in order to improve my. So I think it's a as you go situation.
Through the internet, is the internet making the millennials run very fast, not even having to step on the brakes?
I think the internet has a lot of pros and cons. I always try to look at the good in things, because if you spend so much time on the bad, then you wouldn't go forward, right? But the internet does provide a lot of opportunity to see past current, hindrances, if it's being used in the right way. But I see that you're so passionate about the youth, and I'm just really full. It's amazing to hear, see, and I think mediums such as these, television, the radio, these are the mediums that we need to get a message across, to educate, to help provide information. Yes, you can go and you can teach yourself, but you need mediums such as this in place to provide the option of the learning process. I believe it's the same in Israel as well. And in Israel, there's a lot of energy directed into entrepreneurship. The ones to move forward, the ones to do something different, the ones not necessarily to look at the past, but to look at the future. And what Israel has done, what the people have done, is that they've taken this and they've molded it into entrepreneurship and an entrepreneurial spirit. And as a result of that, you have a lot of cutting edge technology and solutions. And I think if the youth, if their energy was focused and direct and developed, nothing stopping the youth of Israel from becoming the next, the youth of Africa from becoming the next Silicon Valley, the youth of Uganda, the youth of Nigeria. Absolutely nothing. Everyone has the same potential. It's just a case of how you develop them. And I think that Israel has done such a wonderful job of that. And I think a lot of nations can learn. And that's why we're here, people like myself and Rami, to come and share this Israeli spirit, to share this entrepreneurial spirit.
It's wonderful to know that the nation of Israel gives more energy to the entrepreneurs. I think that has to be adopted in our African countries. Viewers, dear viewers on Salt TV and listeners on Salt FM, those who are following by Facebook and by YouTube, Salt YouTube and Salt Media app, you can also follow our sister on her Facebook. The Facebook is Share Love International. Facebook is Share Love International, the word share, but love is LOVV, just like that. International. You can share and exchange the ideas, and I believe something good is coming out. My sister, where do you see the youth of the nation of Israel cooperating with the youth in Africa? What do you think we need to do to have the cooperation between the youth of Africa and the youth of Israel? What do you think we need to do?
Well, Pastor Virginia, that's a wonderful question. And I think from what I heard, unfortunately I missed a segment with you and Rami the last week, but from what Rami spoke about, it's starting with the foundation. It's building a strong foundation. And how do we start a foundation between two people on opposite sides of the world? By dialogue and by communication. And what we're doing here today is just the beginning of that, of the dialogue and the communication. And the next step within that is to find, these persons, because it's very easy to say, let's improve the youth, let's get together, let's do things. But if you don't have people in places pushing forward for this to happen, then it wouldn't. And I think that's where, to a degree, to an extent, Share Love International comes into play here, because we are a platform, and I call it a unique platform because it's headed by a unique person. In terms, I do understand both the African and the Israeli side, and you have such a platform who is dedicated to both sides of the spectrum, then you need to move to the next step. The next step would be finding these persons and these groups and starting projects and initiatives, just take an initiative.
I believe that is a good beginning. I remember when I was talking with you yesterday, and you asked me whether we have a formal relationship, and I said our relationship with Israel is formal by the Bible, by the Word of God. But then it's going to be a great opportunity to have that formal relationship, more so with the concept of millennial diplomacy. And I believe, may I ask you, do you think the youth in Israel can have opportunities in Africa just as we are yearning to get opportunities in Israel, or it is one way?
Well, first, amazing question. Before I answer that, you said something that I just have to highlight. And you said the formal relationship that was established up until now was a biblical relationship, right?
Yes.
And I think that's amazing because you have so much leeway to do so many things. There's never been, in a lot of cases, a modern relationship, right?
Yes.
And that's something exciting, don't you think? That so much can be built and can happen that has never happened before. So much precedency.
Yes.
And if, as for your question, if you if I think that there's an opportunity for Israelis in Africa as there is for Africans in Israel, I would also refer to what Rami said. I don't think it's necessarily having one opportunity within the other. I think, first of all, when you empower the nation itself, it comes automatically. So I hope, and I think that in these few years, there would be such a movement across Africa, which I already see happening, that would push Israelis, and the Israeli youth to Africa. Because it's just like Rami said, there are a lot of people here who think America is one of the best places to live, or Australia, or the UK, England, whatever it is, but there should be more focus that should be put within the place that you live. And I hope that this relationship, in which we're starting to feel just the beginning, of, would be such that it will be that it will be equal. I would hope that.
Okay. Thank you so much. I believe you answered very well. May I ask one question before I go to Brother Rami? Do you think patriotism is inborn or it is taught?
Oh my gosh. Can I refer that to Rami as well? Because I really want to know what he has to say. In Nigeria, we are taught, I think it's something that is across Africa. You have such great questions, and insight. You turn to the person who is more older than you, right? Not that I'm calling you old, Rami, God forbid. In terms of the wisdom. So I think that is something that I myself am trying to understand. So I don't think it would be objective to give you my answer, but I do want to know what Rami says about that.
All right. Thank you so much. And thank you so much for the way you are answering all the questions. The youth are all ears listening to Africans. Also in Nigeria, I believe they are watching the show because we are on DSTV. Mr. Rami, the ball is in your hands to answer all those questions that have been passed on you.
We should not forget one important thing, that Uganda per se and Africa, they have something to give to Israel. It's not a question what Israel can give Africa, either Uganda. There is a lot of things that you can teach us. Might be technology, we are better. Might be we know how to create a better medical program. But there is a lot of values that you can teach the world. We should change the system. The way that you look after the old people in the world, they forgot. In our kibbutz, we not forgotten. But in most of the world, it's a way. And it's so simple things in Africa, in Uganda, that you can bring to the West. And many other things that you can give. It just, you have to change your eyes, not to follow the West as the one hand. I would like them. There is many things that you can give to the West. A good example, what is mean family way of life. Talking about values, the West forgot you not. And it's not mean because you are not as developed as the West, there is nothing you can give. You can give to Israel a lot of things. You can bring to Israel the spirit of Ugandan, if you believe, it's a good thing to bring, and not to go to Israel to visit Holy Land or to get a good agricultural education or technology, but to bring the meaning of so many things. We are the same. We are not different. We are not ahead and you are at the back. Maybe materialistic, there is the third generation want, but let's do it together. Let's sit together and think what is good in Uganda that we can spread over to the West. And there is so many good things, but you should believe on that. And if we have billion people, or only 1,000 people, or only 200 people, doesn't matter. We can create it. We have to start with the first step on that, to know that I had something to give to the world, not only to get, not only materials, but spirit in your country and your neighbor countries. Beautiful things. But unfortunately, today, the young generation, they are so materialistic. In Israel as well. I'm not talking about Africa. In Israel as well. Let's do it together. Let's sit and think how we can bring the beauty of the spirit of Africa to the world. Like in the kibbutz, we radiate outside. Very small people radiate outside from the kibbutz. They work for the society. It could be the same in Uganda, in Kenya, or other countries, together with people in Israel. The world needs you, not as a power worker, but need your spirit.
Of Africa. Africa still believes in family. Africa still believes in family. We are not, like you said, but again in Africa we have a problem that the youth, even when they are mobilized to do something, the land belongs to individuals. If you don't mind, can you please tell us about the policy of the land in Israel? What is the policy of the land? Concerning the land, what is the policy?
About 90% of the land of the state of Israel belongs to it. They rented to the people, but they still kept the land on their hand. Very few, about 10%, if I am right, are private land. Very rare. Some Arabs, some old families who bought land before the establishment of the state of Israel. But about 90% or so belong to the country. And the country tried to develop a good product, crop, what they need. And God thanks, they gave us an opportunity to every year to create a better quality of food for ourselves. Israel, it's not supplies all, every year more and more. We use the desert as a good land for creating a better vegetable. Resalinated water, so we solve a problem of short of water in Israel, which creates a lot of around the Middle East. Today, Israel, thanks God, get more free water because they've developed a resalination project 10 years ago. In my kibbutz, there is a small resalination factory, and supply all our water, and we sell it to the next city. Most of the drinking water in the next city, about 500,000 people, come to our factory. So first of all, it's a good water, and second of all, we get something, so we can be a socialist, and we give a good education, and we keep our in a better way. So there is many things we can create people to feel positive about the place where they live. The moment they feel positive and they can see the future of the place, there is no reason to move.
Do you think by the nation of Israel owning the land by 90%, do you think it is an advantage to the youth who would like to use it for farming or for other things? Because in Africa, most parts of Africa, land belongs to individuals. They own big chunks that are not even developed. The youth who would have organized themselves to do some farming or what, it's costly for them to find land or to be accepted on a land. There is a law for trespass. Do you think it is the advantage of the youth in Israel to hire the land from the government?
First of all, I'm not an expert on that subject to answer it, yes or not. But I can say that the country needs the government to create the future, to understand the people, to import a different theology, like in America, or to leave the wars from the colonialist period. It's not mean it's good. We should give in Africa more pull to the people, to the farmer, to the villagers. Of course, you need to give dependence feeling and not to be centralize everything. And it's a balance. First, the government gave a space for people to create their own land, their own hope. And you need to feel independence. You can bring your soul out and to succeed of felt in the other way. But now you understand it and not your country. So it should be a balance between how much the country control everything and how much you are free. The American system, was good for some period of time. In my eyes, the way that America ran their economy reached the peak, and now it's a time to go down. It's not, and Africa can take, and Asia can take now to be in the front, to create the good system from the most of the population in the earth, to create a balance between government who control and individuals who feel free.
Wow.
And it's more or less in Israel.
Wonderful. I believe the Bible teaches that he who has ears, let him hear. There has to be that balance. Now there is a question that my sister didn't answer and it came to you. Is patriotism taught, inborn? Where do we get patriotism to begin thinking that God didn't make a mistake to place us where we are? Though we have to cooperate with other youth, other people from other parts, because we all coexist on this planet. How do a person get that patriotic spirit?
That's a very good question. I would start saying, I'm not sure that's inborn or it's something that is developed. I think it depends on what period of history. Because if you would ask the French revolutionists if it was inborn, if it was created out of necessity, they would give you their version. And if you would ask Jewish Israelis 72 years ago if it was inborn or created out of necessity, you would have another answer. So I think it depends completely on the space and the time of history in which we are in now. And I think in the past 10 years, there's been a huge shift in terms of patriotism itself. I wouldn't want to choose one over the other, but I do want to say that there are many things that influence that, and one of that is the identity factor. Many times, and I would use myself as an example because I know myself best. Many times I get coached and I get what yourself more of. And I love those kind of questions because I love to be controversial and say, I don't consider myself one over the other. My identity is of both. I'm both a Nigerian, both an Israeli. I'm both African and Jewish, Christian and Jewish. And this is my choice to identify as that. But I think identity, especially in the last 10 years, has become in everything, especially with the youth. And that is one of the things that it eventually creates the patriotism have or don't have per nation. That would be to that.
Yeah, because the reason why I asked that question, back in 1500, 1400, 1600, Africans were taken to be slaves. But today, what Africans are doing, they are selling the inheritance to shift to those countries where their grandparents were taken as slaves on chain. But these ones are selling, putting together the money, go maybe to Australia, to Europe, or to US, leaving nothing behind. And then getting there, struggling again. Yet they have sold the land that was left to them by the people who did not even get the opportunity which the millennials have. People who did not get the exposure of education. And the people who are educated today are selling everything and they go there. That's why I asked that, where do we find patriotism? Is it inborn? Because people are like, for you are a Nigerian, people in Africa to put on the bandana that has the US flag, to put it on the car or on the bike, is the odd. Somebody's too big because he has that flag waving on the bike or on the car. In our churches, you may fail to find the flag of your nation, but you find the flags of all the world. So meaning that even pastors, even millennials, they seem not to understand the importance of the motherland. They seem not to defend what God gave them for free. We have a good climate in Africa. I heard Brother Rami talking about the scarce of water. In Uganda, we have the source of the river Nile. But again, people who are at the Nile basins are selling the land to go to Europe. And since this program is broad, that's why I wanted to know, how do you advise? What's your take on it? Is it to be taught by the parents? Should we have a special coaching and a lesson? Should it be done by the government? How could we put that sense in the millennials that they belong to where they think it's bad until they make that place a good place? What do we do? What can we do? To both of you, and one of you give us the answer for that.
Well, Pastor Mujingo, I'm going to that up. It's actually a very painful subject, truth be said. Everything in what you're saying, which you have so much potential, you know, in people who leave their countries for what they believe and they are being told and they see as a better opportunity. And this is something that has been going on for the last years. But again, because I also, like I said, I like to look at positivity. And I would like to refer to Ghana and to what Ghana is doing, and to use Ghana as a form of example for how much initiative they're taking to bring back people, Ghanaians, who've made this move abroad. I'm sure you're aware that most and a lot of the slave trade who passed through Africa were from the Ghanaian and from the coast. And there is so much of, like I said, it all goes back to identity. But in the end, what I've realized and what I see a lot of going on, especially in West Africa, is people are grabbing onto what they know as themselves. And even if they're abroad, right, and they're far away from their country, they're trying to build that culture and to retain it. I will give you a small joke that I hear a lot of people who I come across, especially American Jews, and they say to me, when I'm in America, they call me the Jew, and when I'm in Israel, they call me the American, right? So, you know, it's this struggle of where you're supposed to fit, but it is a painful subject because, like you said, this is a land which is so blessed, and there's so many, Africa in general is just really blessed. And it is unfortunate that this is the situation. I do see it changing, and I see it changing because the individuals wanted to change. As to your question as how can this be developed, I think it comes from a very young age. Reinforcing your child's character, reinforcing their identity, telling them no matter where you are in the world, don't forget where you came from. This is your home, this is your land. You cannot stop people from wanting to try to live a better life, you know, get better opportunities.
Yeah.
But you can open their eyes out to the fact that they can make a difference, they can do something different. And it is a challenge because there are things that are hindrances, even in Israel. I mean, again, Rami spoke about it, where you have a lot of young Israelis who, straight after their army service, move to these states in search for a better opportunity, even though it's considered very poor in the world. You know, people always want better in general. But I think if you give the proper incentives, and this is where the government does come in, if the proper incentives are given, investment, that helps. That definitely does something.
Thank you so much. Again, to the viewers and listeners on Salt Media, Salt FM and Salt TV, you can follow my sister on Facebook. On Facebook, Share Love International. Share, the word share, love, it's one word, Share Love International, but love is L-O-V-V. There's nothing like L-O-V-E. It's Share Love International on Facebook. You have heard her mind. She's so constructive, and it will be very beneficial for all of us to keep chatting, to keep talking. Brother Rami, our initiative of these programs is to build that foundation, the relationship between Africa and Israel, between Israel and Africa. We are about to finish. We have like 15 minutes to end the program. Thank you so much for the time. I would like to press one question to both of you. Where do we see Africa and Israel's relationship in the next 10 years?
Wow.
To begin with.
Wow. I'm not sure if I can look that this 10 years, but I will try to imagine.
Yes, please.
And for next month or 2 months, that will be the first step or step. Hopefully the next time when we meet Salt Media Studio,
Yes.
we'll meet with 2 Ugandan or maybe other countries in our age or maybe older, who sit together around the table and discuss, and we listen to each other, and we get the idea how that could be in the next. The most I will be in the next 10 years that we can sit together around round table and discuss the same subjects which belong to Uganda or Africa, as well, which belong to the Christian and to the Jew, but together. To fill 10 years, the people in Africa feel that they are equal, not by human rights, but by belief that they have something positive in their soul, something good in their life to give to the world, give to Israel, give to the Jews. And in 10 years, I think Pastor Jingor have a good supporter. Peace, love, and me.
Thank you so much for the word of wisdom. I think Africa, the youth and the elders, Africa at large, we are suffering of the underrating spirit. People underrate themselves. They don't believe they can give. They don't believe they can make it. They believe in giving them. And actually the objectivity of this program is not to beg for anything, but to get that wisdom, to get that healthy interaction as we have had it. I cannot leave you without asking you about the situation concerning coronavirus in Israel. In Africa, it is easing slowly, and Uganda has opened up. It's not like the other time, only that the churches are not yet open and the schools, but so many workplaces have put some precautions. and they have started running business as usual. How is it in Israel?
Where is Toby? Where is Toby? She disappeared. Where is Toby?
She's there.
Oh, I missed you. No.
She's there. She will answer the same question about how you are experiencing the coronavirus.
So what I say, Israel just in the middle, probably in the middle of the second wave. The first wave, it looked like Israel depressed in a good way the virus. The virus decided to leave the country, to go to other part of the world. But somehow he wants to stay. He's a very patriot. He wants to stay in Israel. So now the second wave is again, and the number of people who are infected by the virus in Israel rise up. It's almost 2,000 a day, and it's a huge number of people who are infected, and that belong or together with political restlessness. It's not an easy time in Israel. The economy, the medical situation with the virus, the unrest, political situation, Israel is not in a good moment. Hopefully, first of all, the pandemic situation again crashes down, and the virus will decide to immigrate from Israel.
On the vaccine.
Or the vaccine, yes. Hopefully the vaccine will be there, yes.
All right. My sister, the same question that I asked Mr. Rami, where do we see African-Israel relationship in 10 years, at least to begin with?
Well, if you would ask me what my hope and what I prophesied, actually, with all the hard work that's going on in Israel and African nations, I see an alliance.
Yes.
At least I hope to see, as strong as that of the US and Israel. And how we get to that, and now I want to urge everyone who's watching in Uganda and across Africa, is to urge leadership, philanthropists, business people and companies to take the initiative and to create cooperation and partnerships. Because this is not something that is going to happen overnight. And I always get asked by people who send me messages, across all sorts of social media, on how can we help? We pray for Israel. How else can we reach them? And I say you need to urge your leaders, because there's so much that can be learned from one another. And only by that way will the alliance be strong enough. And I hope that in the next, I see much more spaces being occupied between Africans and Israel, and between the state of Israel and Africa, in all sectors: the agricultural sector, technological sector, the medical sector, business sector. These are opportunities that are waiting to be made.
Sharing with our sister called Toby. Toby is an African Jew or a Jewish African. Which one do you choose? Do you start with the Jew or you start with Africa?
I never choose.
I do your chance. He is an Israeli Jew, born to a Christian family in Nigeria. She is Israeli.
Okay.
Everyone is trying to have a piece, but I belong to everyone. I belong to the world. Yes.
You are just a wonderful bridge between
Yes.
the two countries, the continent and the nation, and also the race. Just like I've been saying, those of you that are on social media and on our Salt TV, Salt FM, you can follow the conversation between you and Sister Toby. The Facebook is Share Love International. Like I said, share is the word share. One word with love, but love, which is LOVV International. Now, my sister, as we are about to wind up the program, I haven't asked you any question concerning Christianity, the way you see Christianity in Africa and Israel, the Christian relationship also, the faith, concerning faith. What is your take on faith?
Can you be more specific? Because that is a very huge topic. What about it would you like to ask about?
Come again?
I'm saying I would love to, if you would be more specific. What about faith? How are you asking how it affects? I mean,
in Africa, the Christians are actually a combination of African Jews because of the Jewish Savior. How is salvation in Israel? Apart from the big umbrella of Christianity, but there is this part of those who are born again, evangelicals, saved people by those who believe that Christ is the Savior, the Redeemer, the Messiah.
I still don't get your question. Can you just, because I want to answer it really well, just tell me where exactly, rephrase that for me. You want to know what exactly?
I want to know whether the way it is flourishing in Africa is the same way it is flourishing in Israel.
Wonderful. Well, in the few years since I've been working with the Christian community across the world, I've come to realize that there is so much happening within the Christian community itself, even before you come to Israel. And your question, if it's flourishing in Israel as it is in Africa, so I believe that it is. There's a lot more openness. People are willing to hear much more and listen much more to each other. Accept, I mean, they might not accept the idea, but there is a form of respect that comes out of it. This topic of religion, it's a big topic in Israel. Is it something that it's so predominant, but it's a topic that everyone shies away from? Simply because I believe the political correctness in it to offend others. But I see more and more people into discussing it. And if, to your question, if it's flourishing in Israel as much as in Africa, I think it's flourishing in Africa much more in terms of the Christian community.
Oh, I got you very well, because even in other countries, they put it the way you said, that political collectiveness, and somebody's faith is personal, but I believe we must pass on the faith, because the Bible says that go overseas and preach to every creature. So political collectiveness is a problem to the dissemination of the gospel. Thank you so much for the time given to us. We have like 5 minutes. You can share them. Each one of you give the last remarks of the program, but to me, I'm so delighted to have you. It's been a healthy, interactive show, and we are hoping to have you again very soon to continue developing these ideas and also the relationship between Africa and Israel, mostly Uganda and Israel. The last remarks from you, Toby, and Mr. Rami.
Should I go first? Well, first of all, I would like to thank you, Pastor Jingo, for this delightful opportunity across to so many people. And this is such an insightful conversation, in which I hope that myself and Rami giving you, even if it is of the Israeli Jewish spirit, and what it is that we think and how our experiences as Israelis and as Jews can, help African youth and Africans and African nations. I do want to say much of what I feel was discussed here goes along of the theoretical, and I know that there is much space for the practical. There was a lot of practical things in which Rami mentioned, which I mentioned, but I want to urge whoever is listening now and whoever is to know that there are things that can be done to build a relation in Israel and Africa, and to build that alliance. And if it's, like I said, urging your personal leadership or philanthropists or just leaders, powerful influencers, social media influencers, to start building those. And this is where, even if it's to the tiniest of parts, my initiative, Share Love, comes into place. If you feel like there's something that can be done, you want to bring up, you want to have your leadership bring up, send us a message, get in touch with us. We'll see how we can, build these powerful bridges and this powerful alliance. And it's such an honor that if we would go back a little, and just as Rami said in the beginning, this was a godsend, and this is God who put us here together, myself, Rami, and all. There's a reason why we're here. There's someone who needs to hear this message, and this might be across Israel and Africa, somewhere across Israel and Uganda. And I strongly believe that we're in the right place at the right time. And again, I want to thank Rami for being here, and stay blessed. Thank you for your prayers and your blessings to Israel. And that's it. Shalom.
Wow. We bless you, we bless Israel, we bless Israel, we bless Israel, we bless Jerusalem, we bless Jerusalem, and we bless Jerusalem, and we bless all the Jews wherever they are across the continents. Shalom, shalom. Yes, my brother Rami, your remarks?
I can't end my word, but forgot the first word which I started. So first of all, I would like to thank Toby that she is the one that pushed forward to see the future in good eyes. She is a good teacher, a good motivation, and she's a good mind, and we are lucky that we work together. That is one thing. The second thing, I would like to thank you, President Bojingo, that you're in the front, but behind you, there is some staff to you. We run this meeting quite well. So tell to all of them, thanks from two of us. I think Toby, it's belonged to this world. Just to say thank you for them to run this trust in such an easy way. The last time, I know how difficult was it, but now it's looked like very easy. And below and behind us, there is 2 million, might be more, I don't know, you know, who listen to us. For them, that they stay with us in a time when they could be with families, with friends, or might be a little nap, but they decided to stay with us. Shalom from them to them. Hopefully the future will be better in their little house, in their little village. The corona not touch their life, their family life. And the last, what I would like to say, is somehow it connects to the God. There is so many stars in the skies. But I remember from the time when I was in the army and should navigate for 50K, I should choose 2 stars. There was thousands of stars on the skies, but 2 projects, stars, to look at and to follow. That will give us the direction. And the God directed us to the right way. And I'm sure if we look too wide, lost the direction. We should be concentrate on either 1 or 2 subjects and to follow wide districts of how to create a better relation between Africa. I think we should talk about that at the beginning. Could we create a relation? It's my prayer for him to help us, all us, 3 of us, and thank you that you are with us.
Yofi. Yofi. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. He taught me the word Yofi means great. And do you have any new word that you are teaching us today? Because the last time you taught us Shalom, now you taught me privately the word Yofi, and I've now given it to the public. Yofi, you told me it means great.
Yes.
Any new word today that you leave with us?
And beautiful.
Yofi means beautiful.
As well as
okay.
Beautiful and good things. Great.
Okay. Back to my sister before we close down the program. Can you please give the general public your social media accounts so that they can keep talking to you? We can't hear you. We can't hear you, Sister Toby. We can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, now we can hear you.
Yeah.
I thought Pastor Virginia is such a generous, thing, and you've mentioned my social media. As in share, LOVV International on Facebook. You're welcome to send me a message. And I think, like I said, if you want to see change happen within the society, send your leaders, your philanthropists, your religious leaders, urge them, let them reach out.
Yep, the reason why I called you back to give out your social media handles is because you understand to communicate with the millennials, and I respect you for the millennial concept, millennial diplomacy concept. Thank you so much for that.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, both of you, for the time that you offered to us. May the good Lord bless you. Yahweh bless you. Yahweh bless Israel. Yahweh bless Uganda. Our viewers, we've come to the end of the program. Thank you so much for tuning Salt FM. Thank you so much for tuning Salt TV. We interrupted with your programs, but we believe that we have benefited a lot and a lot from the sister and brother from Israel. And I believe if we put in practice what we've learned, the world will be a better place to be, mostly Uganda. Thank you so much from me. Now back to the control room. Thank you so much, all the technicians, the control room up there, and thank you so much for the great work. We've not had difficulties since the kickoff of the program up to the end. God bless Uganda, God bless Israel, God bless everyone, God bless you. That's the end of the program.
72 years of rising, fighting and reconciling, growing and thriving, celebrating 72 years of Israel independence. Soul Television, Femunyo. The Lord's Prayer. Matthew chapter 6, verse 9 to 13. In this manner, therefore, pray. Our Father in heaven, hallowed be your name.